All right, guys. Somebody put this into my Discord. It's called "The Problem with YouTube Commentary Videos." It's by Elliot
Hello.
Sang, and I think it's about me. No, I'm just kidding. Who am I? It looks like it's about Sunny version 2 and Illuminati. So
This
let's give it a view. Do you guys ever think that I'll be relevant enough to ever get criticized for reaction videos? You know, in like a meaningful way. Not by some like little commentary channel, but by like somebody that like does like a big video essay. Because right now, what do I get? Like fucking couple thousand views a video, right? Whatever, you know. Sometimes I guess I get an average like 4,000. Let's say nothing. You know, Asmongold gets like hundreds of thousands of views. That's the biggest one. You know, do you ever think that I'll hit that point? You know. Let's hope. No, I'm just kidding. The goals for this channel are 100K. Followers, subscribers. That's the word that we use now. And that's it. That'll be cool. Let's watch.
video is sponsored by PayPal Honey.
Hello,
YouTube.
What is
There's
PayPal
three
Honey?
main problems with YouTube commentary channels. One,
Oh.
the creators.
This kid, I don't think this is his voice because it doesn't seem to suit him. It sounds like it might be Sunny V2 voice, or I'm in big trouble.
Two, the audience. Three, YouTube.
Feels like he's
in
doing
other
an accent,
words,
right?
it all sucks. Subscribe and like my channel. Yeah, mate.
Okay, he's okay. All right.
It's been a long
Sounded
week.
like
Recently, Pinely made a video about the unethical YouTube video essay commentary channels. These channels are often criticized for outright lying, slandering, plagiarizing, and scamming, and the main focus of the video was Sunny V2, a creator whose videos often propagate right-wing talking points under the guise of...
I think that the biggest one is that they're just like lazy. And listen, I am too. You know, but catch that bag. But like specifically Illuminati, it seems like she pumps out like a ton. Like and then she has like a lot of other people make this stuff for her, which makes sense to have like writers. Like if I ever did video essays or something, I would just be narrating. And I'm not going to be doing any research. But doesn't she get like one per day? That's pretty crazy. It's freaking wild.
Pop culture and YouTube critique. But the video also zooms out to examine bad video essays as a wider phenomenon with many facets. Here's the thing, folks. This work is not easy. The very connotation of these projects being YouTube videos is enough for people to kind of dismiss how much work and thought goes into them. In reality, writing and producing a 20-minute video is hard enough. Doing so while doing a lot of research and taking time to formulate well-thought-out opinions and cool aesthetic ideas makes it really, really difficult. And then doing so on a consistent basis so that you can get consistent, livable income from it is downright magical. I am an aspiring magician. It takes a lot of motivation to attempt to do the impossible this way. I don't want this video to seem like an outright...
Is this guy really like an aspiring magician? Because I kind of want to check it out. Does he have like a magic channel?
Hello.
I don't see it. He doesn't have any other channels. All right.
Attack on any creators. I did a little Australian dunking at the beginning. I love Australians, okay? I love Australians, and I have no problem with Australian YouTubers. I mean, I have critiques of certain ones, but, you know, some of you are...
My least favorite one is Mr. Ryan, sorry. Sorry, Ryan. Ryan Beard. Now he's down there. He's up there? Down there. Sure. Down under. I'm keeping an eye on you. We haven't seen Ryan in a while. Gotta go see if he's made any videos.
Cool. Most of you are cool, probably. I like Boy. He does Age of Mythology videos. I like him. Instead, in this video, I want to ask the question, what are we actually doing here? Okay, what am I doing? I'm going to try to answer that question as well as I can. Along the way, I'll be trying to answer a bunch of other pertinent questions. For instance, why bad video essays tend to do well? What makes a good video essay a good video essay? And how do we as audiences and as creators figure out the dance, the terrible, terrible dance of trying to get attention and money while also not trying to sell your soul? Speaking of which, here's an ad break.
Alright, so here we are in front of the elephants. Cool thing about these guys is that they have really, really, really long fronts, and that's cool.
YouTube was formed...
But, you know, it's interesting. I went to, I think, an ecology center recently, and there are fewer and fewer things in there. You know, there used to be 2 bears, Honey and Pooh, and then one died, and now there's just one of them. I don't know if it's Honey or Pooh. And what my wife told me when she was younger, she stuck her fingers through the cage to pet it, and I think that's very dangerous because the bear might have bitten her fingers off. But anyway, it's interesting because while it is kind of, you know, you go into the exhibit and it becomes a little bit lame, it also, I guess, is probably the step in the right direction. I think they only accept some animals, like rescues, basically. Maybe there was I think there was a couple of wolves in there that were domesticated, and so like they can't go back into the wild because they just wouldn't be able to really function. So things like that, or they're injured and they can't really go back into the wild because we are shifting socially, which makes sense. And that gets into a conversation about the ethics of some kind of a zoo, which I think you can do it ethically. Is that a real word? Ethics? Ethically? That's a real word. But I think it's hard. I would say, and maybe this is just because I'm a cringe Disney adult, that the way Disney does it is pretty effective because they have a lot of wide open space that very I would say accurately emulates the environment that they come from. But a lot of these other places, the environments are so small. And I feel like that's obviously not good. So we're probably going in the right direction. I just thought that it was interesting.
In February of 2005 by 3 entrepreneurs who gained wealth from the rise of the web and finance capital. According to one of its founders, Jawed Karim, YouTube was inspired by 2 events in 2004. One was the Super Bowl halftime show in which Janet Jackson's chest was exposed against her will in front of the world. The other was the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. YouTube was formed as a place where internet users could easily access footage of women, especially celebrity women's sexualized humiliation, as well as traumatic news stories. And I think it's safe to say that that is still what this website is. Of course, a lot has changed, and there's a lot of other things that this website does. It's now a place where tons
What did he show?
As well as easily access footage of women, especially celebrity women's sexualized.
It's truly embarrassing for me to know that 90 million people, actually 140 million people, saw my breast. Oh, Janet Jackson. Okay.
What?
Blow up in the internet side of the computer screen, she says, but there are much worse things in the world than for that. Okay, yeah, that sucks.
This website is. Of course, a lot has changed, and there's a lot of other things that this website does. It's now a place where tons of creators all over the world can gain income, sometimes very lucrative income, from making all types of videos as long as there's a palpable audience for it. Many of these creators have gotten tons of acclaim and have arguably had really important impact on internet culture, or larger culture outside of the internet where the grass is. Dan Olson's video essay, Line Goes Up, The Problem with NFTs, is one of the best and most important documentarian works of the century. YouTube becomes a powerful platform for these creators to blossom and to make a career, in great part because of its acquisition by Google. See, Google recognized YouTube's capacity for amassing a ton of attention and
oh, it's funny. I was old enough, because I'm 33. Sorry, I'm burping. There used to be a Google video before they bought YouTube. It was very interesting. But they had their own separate service. I don't remember much about it because I think that was back when I was playing Warcraft 3 custom games. But it's something, it's just interesting. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid.
Recognize that as the app that had come up with AdSense, which is monetizing attention on the internet, that would be a very lucrative place for them to invest. Google's algorithms, AdSense, and analytical tools create the foundation for the YouTuber economy, which essayists like FD Signifier often comment on, giving out information to fellow YouTubers and curious audiences via live stream. This dynamic is a great example, maybe the example, of the attention economy. The attention economy is a term that has been defined many times for many years, and mainly it gets defined in a kind of basic liberal, neoliberal way of fetishizing the idea of supply and demand. You see, in basic economics, you get taught the idea of supply and demand as the backbone of economics, where there is a demand for a product, there is a supply that will continuously be lucrative for it. You supply for the demand, and then demand, supply, demand. But the thing is, economies don't really work that way. For instance, free exchange isn't free. People don't demand things just because they think that they're good out of their free will. They can often be made to demand things, etc., etc. Yay. So we have to pay.
I mean, I'm assuming he's talking about like advertising. Is that what you're talking about? Through like ad campaigns that get people to want to buy stuff? I'm not entirely sure what he's referencing. Especially those ones where I'll say like, oh man, I kind of want McDonald's today. And then all of a sudden on my phone, you open it up, you turn on Instagram, there's a McDonald's ad. Happens all the time, dude. It's the worst too when it goes as far as where I open my phone and there's a McDonald's app on the phone. Who downloaded that? I tell my wife I didn't place that order either. It's not really my fault if you think about it, because I'm just a fucking victim of the system. That's why I'm so fat. It's not my fault. It's everybody else's fault.
Closer attention to what the attention economy is and build new definitions for it in order to figure out what's happening to us and what we're doing here. More on this after the break.
All right, what's the break?
In the book, The Attention Economy, Labor, Time and Power, and Cognitive Capitalism, Claudio Celis Bueno examines the attention economy in a critical, material way. In a world in which information and knowledge becomes central to the valorization process of capital, human attention becomes a scarce and hence increasingly valuable commodity. But hold on, what's a commodity? Well, to Marx, of course, a commodity is in the first place an object outside us, a thing that by its properties satisfies human wants of some sort or another. That's from Capital, Volume 1. It's like the first line. So think about commodities like cotton, right? Cotton is a commodity. Clothes made from cotton are also commodities. They're things that people want, need, and then buy.
Sure.
The creator is a kind of...
When I think about a commodity, I think a little bit more about things because thing called a lounge fly bag. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of lounge fly bags, but lounge fly bags are brilliant. Dude, are you really running away? I hate people who fucking play this game like this. I also missed all my abilities, so he's probably going to beat me. I'm going to pop a potion here. But that's a good commodity because I don't need it. But apparently my wife and I, we didn't even realize this. We bought 5 this week, which means I bought them because I paid for them. But we bought 5 of them this week. Isn't that fucking crazy? 5 fucking lounge fly bags is nuts. I know. I'm addicted. Oh, you're dead, dude. Come on. Come on. What are you doing? Take the L. Just be a man. He died on accident. Sorry for being a little phobic. Anyway, I like Loungefly.
Unskilled.
I don't lose that. Shut up.
In the sense that they don't have skills, but unskilled in the sense that they're not designed to have skills by the employment structure and the economic structure.
There aren't any physical requirements for you to be able to call yourself a video essayist. You don't need a college degree. You don't need to have like a job in the field.
And so the term unskilled laborer is more a reference to how they're regarded systematically than like an evaluation of what they actually are. No, actually, I'm unskilled. I have no skills. But the creator is an unskilled laborer by trade whose role is to amass as much of this attention commodity as possible. That's the economic role. Anyway, the audience is the consumer that gives attention where they see fit according to whatever influences them to give attention to things. And this creates a question. If a commodity is something that is outside us, then how can attention be a commodity if it comes from us? Well, that has to lead us to a particular theoretical...
Well, I mean, that's the commodity would be like the video you're creating, right? It would be a little bit more, I guess, I don't know if you'd call it abstract since it's not something that you could physically hold, but the commodity wouldn't be the attention. That would be the payment, right? The commodity would be the video and the payment method would be the, actual money, but I guess like some kind of a social credits through attention. But I wouldn't say the attention is the commodity. But okay.
Idea, which is that attention is actually produced by us. It is not something that we have in the same way we have blood. It's something that we give in a process. And when you think about what that is, and especially how much effort and choice it takes to give attention to something and what we expect from giving attention to something, it sort of starts to sound a little bit like work. We produce attention towards something through our own effort. Sure. Bueno writes that a critique of the attention economy must shift from an understanding of attention as a scarce commodity to one where attention appears as a form of labor through which surplus value is generated and extorted. In other words, you, the viewer, are doing work.
Yes.
Alarm. You, the viewer, are doing work for YouTube. YouTube is a capitalist that gains surplus value from a ubiquitous, nebulous reserve of creators and audiences. The creators mediate...
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Just like we're doing work for McDonald's when we buy McDonald's. I mean, money fundamentally it's supposed to be a fair demonstration of our value of our labor, which is always true, guys. Okay, just so you know, I work so much harder than McDonald's employees or any. That's why I get paid more than a McDonald's employee, because I work harder. Obviously, like, this game is so fucking hard, dude. Actually, it's not. I'm just so good at PvP. You know, I'm just like, I fucking rambled so much I lost my own point. Holy fuck. Yeah, you're kind of doing that across the board financially. Your attention really is just a form of currency, especially since we're able to monetize your attention through different advertisements that are very effective at getting you to want to consume things. Isn't it interesting though? Like our entire, because like obviously some advertisements I guess could be good for things you might need, like you know, that sale at ShopRite. But for the most part, these marketing tactics are really good at getting you to get things that are completely unnecessary to you. That's why I have like my wife has 40 lounge bags. They're not necessary, and like they only contribute like we are happier. But there's much better things that could be used for those things. I could sell them all and probably feed poor people, and I don't. But there's an interesting concept somebody came up with once, where they had this idea where you could potentially consensually, you know, feed dogs that are in kill shelters to homeless people. And it makes sense. Why waste that meat? You know what I mean? I'll try a dog burger as long as it's healthy. Although I guess that's kind of the problem, is that we don't know if it could be healthy, because they wouldn't be raised. A lot of those dogs in those shelters, they might not necessarily be healthy. The meat might not be quality. So we'd have to have dog farms, and then that gets into the ethics of having a dog farm, and then is it as financially, profitable? I don't know. Let's move on.
The audience's production of attention and thus production of value. And so what this means is that we are essentially like employees who are not signing up to be employees. Our natural human process of, for instance, wanting to watch a video or a movie is monetized. It is extracted from us by capitalists in order for them to build surplus value. They sell the effect that they have so much watch time to advertisers. That's the word. The more watch time you have, the more you can tell advertisers to give you money for having that amount of watch time, because they want that attention. That attention allows them to build all types of value for themselves through advertisements. And so that's how you monetize it. And so that gives you a sense of, obviously, why YouTube channels that aren't necessarily the most substantive, but are constantly trying to grab attention, are the ones that are the most popular and the most rewarded. And that goes for the video essay space. This is what Pinely was talking about. A creator like Sunny...
Are you talking about... I think what he's trying to get at is sensationalized content. Like, sensationalized content fundamentally pulls in a lot of attention, for the most part, I would say. Whether it's media or internet drama, media, online people who sensationalize situations to make as much money as possible, or what else is like thumbnail clickbait. That's sensationalization. There's a lot of different ways people sensationalize different things, to a point where it's become so accepted, I guess we don't even really think about it sometimes. But for me, I think that, I mean, it depends on your content. You know, I either like to be a big stupid farting fat guy, or I like to sometimes have educated conversations. And for me, I think that clickbaity titles can sometimes ruin a video if it's meant to, I'm trying to articulate myself, explore something in a more intelligent way. You know, try to tell almost not a story, but, you know, when you go through like a process of introducing a concept or an idea, or growing and learning through that idea, and when you add some kind of priming to the video that tells you what to believe before the video even starts, sometimes that can take away some of the fun of learning that experience or experiencing that experience. So I just wanted to say that.
AV2, or, you know, you can say a creator like Illuminati, who's had a bunch of controversy recently and who has sometimes plagiarized in her videos, arguably, debatably. I'm not making certified accusations of such a thing, but creators that, you know, are much worse than even those two creators are getting a lot of attention because they're seeing the matrix, they're seeing the pattern, and they're fulfilling their role. These creators that maybe don't have the best videos but have the most attention-grabbing videos are highly efficient at mediating the labor value of audiences, and so YouTube algorithmically rewards them. Bueno writes, in the case of Google, there is no distinction between the content consumed by the user, e.g. the free search engine, and the labor process he or she performs, e.g. the consumption of advertising content. These separate spheres become integrated under one single process through which the service provided, each single Google search, appears at the same time as the mechanism that produces the highly segmented blocks of attention, the advertising agency that finds the right advertiser, AdSense and AdWords, and the rating agency that evaluates its efficiency, Google Analytics. So that leads to the question, why are we doing this? Why am I making videos? And is this a good idea? Am I a scammer? Am I a...
Like, it's money. It's always money. You know, most people, they're doing it for money. Like, even me, I'm doing it for money. Obviously, I'm invading a dungeon. Is this a new dungeon? Oh, it is. Obviously, I don't say things just for attention and money, and that's where the problem gets into. When you have a money incentive, you make a big viral video, and then people start engaging for a while, and then you kind of, you know, you dip in views, which is something that's a very natural, like, ebb and flow. And when I was on TikTok, I would, you know, back in the day, there's some moments that I'm not proud of where I would make some sensationalized content for views, for sure. But that's what most people do it for. You just have to try not to lose your soul. And I think one of the biggest issues that I have with Sunny V2 is the way that he talks about content is like really stupid and toxic. Because he'll often talk about losing views in a super negative way, where, like, yeah, of course you don't want to lose views, but at the same time, damn, this guy's dumpstering me. At the same time, you're going to take dips, and I think that we kind of have to kill off this idea that there aren't ebbs and flows in content, because if people notice a reduction in their viewership and they're told that that means that they're doing badly, they're going to have a more negative impact, which is going to lead to them sensationalizing more. But if you tell people like, hey, this is part of the business of YouTube, that might make them feel a little better. It's like, yeah, this just happened. You're gonna have your ups and your downs, depending on what your content is. Of course, in the like more drama space, it's gonna be a little bit different. When there's a more popular, interesting topic, people are going to tune in and engage more into the content creator who's covering it. But you know, that's just the way it works. And if you don't like that inconsistency, like, get a real job. It's not a bad idea. But that's one of the ideas he pushes. I remember when he talked about how Dream like wanted to reveal his face. It seemed like Dream just wanted to make real life content with his friends, and he didn't want to have to do the silly gimmick anymore. He's getting older, and I can respect that. And Dream's like, what's his face? Sonny VT's like, oh, this is so bad, in his silly goose accent. This is such a bad thing. He's gonna lose money. Who cares? Especially when you have a lot of money. Like, what does it necessarily matter if your views go down? It's kind of just the way life works. People look at this in such a bizarre, toxic way.
Scammer? More on this after the ad break. It's been a long week.
I feel like he said that he's gonna do a bunch of ads. And he
Folks,
hasn't done
it's summertime. I got my summer shirts out, and that means I'm going to be doing summer shopping. And what better shopping tool to use than Honey, the #1 shopping tool in America? Honey's like this little bestie, this button that you have at the top of your browser that can help you save deals across a ton of different websites, including when you're shopping for clothes, for shoes, for food delivery services. And what it does is search for promo codes so that you don't have to, which can allow you to save money on a ton of different things. And if there's one thing that I love, it's saving money. Okay, I love spending money a little bit more than saving money, but when you can do both, what more do you want? This includes
like
tons of websites that you're already using and probably don't even realize that you can get promo.
Probably that's because you have YouTube Premium. What does that mean? I have YouTube Premium. Ads would play. What are you talking about? I never made a comment about not getting ads. I don't know what you're talking about. But I do have YouTube Premium, so yes, I don't get ads. But I don't know why you brought that up. Did I say something that I didn't even realize? Like, even tune into my live forever. Well, that's fucked up, bro. Okay.
Promo codes for, and it's absolutely free. You don't have to spend any money on it, and you can help support the channel. So feel free to join Honey through me at joinhoney.com/Elliot. That's joinhoney.com/ELLIOT.
Who's Elliot?
That's my name.
Oh.
Yeah. Thanks to Honey for sponsoring this video, and have a spectacular time watching the rest of it.
Integrity.
I can't tell you how many times I've either mentally or actually had conversations with myself or other creators about what it is we're doing. Are we making art for the sake of making art? Is this our art? Is this our media? Is this our journalism? Frankly, you talk to 5 different YouTubers about what they do, and they'll give you 5 different answers.
I mean, I guess that depends on what kind of content you're making, whether you would consider it art or not. I feel like the thought of whether people are making art or not is almost like a... I guess my content's not. That's pretty lazy, so I couldn't even engage in that conversation. I just feel like it's not that deep. But then again, I'm just a fat fucking old guy playing video games on the internet and reacting to videos. So
we're all kind of making our own rationalizations, but ultimately we all do come back to the reality that we are trying to get attention and monetize that attention, unless one of us isn't monetizing, in which case, God bless you. I hope you have other jobs that sustain you well enough. But for those of us who want to make this a job, like myself, this becomes a point of dilemma, a point of insecurity, because on one hand, we're trying to make the best video according to a specific artistic choice, a specific goal that we have. We're trying to benefit our audiences. But on the other hand, we also recognize that this is a job, and jobs have to be monetized, and there's no fairness in judging people for trying to monetize their art, their work, their media. How the hell else are artists gonna eat? You can talk about how it's wrong, and obviously we all have to take these steps to balance things, but it's also not really a question whether or not we should just ban creators from monetizing their own things, or just, cancel them, as people would say in today's parlance. So that brings me to what we do and what I think of when I do this. I am constantly struggling with those things, and
I was about to say, it sounds like this is a really, I don't even know what word to use because I'm just a brain dead right now, but this is almost his midlife crisis, or there's some kind of a deep crisis associated with this conversation about like what you do. And that sounds like the searching for the meaning in the content, which I can understand. When I used to work for the bus company, well, actually, in general, I have a pretty, my perspective is like, hey, I'm making money to eat, right? So that's a lot of me. But there was some purpose to be had in that company. I worked and I cleaned buses, and there's something that's very necessary about cleaning public transportation buses. I know that they're poor, but I know only poor people use the bus, but they still deserve to have a clean, comfortable space that they can go into without getting fucking horribly sick, right? Especially since we clean public transportation buses, but also the buses for like the paratransit buses, which were for people who had disabilities or they were older and they needed to get to their dialysis appointments. These are very important. So it's easy for me to snipe like, hey, what is it? What value am I producing in the world? I think that I was producing a pretty decent value. There's something that I could be proud of. Wish the company treated us better. Taking away my vacations and whatnot. It's pretty fucked up. 11 years of service, guys. It's pretty fucked up. With a pretty ineffective union. Pieces of shit that let them take away my vacation. Anyway, like I was saying. But it seems like when it comes to YouTube, I mean, what do you really have to do? And there's times where I get locked into that conversation with myself. It's like, oh, am I doing something that's really that important? And I've come to the decision that like sometimes, maybe. But I don't always like to do important stuff. Like there's times where we have like really good, I think, good conversations about, especially, I guess my new thing like lately has really been a lot about like, disability advocacy, especially in the edgier space I'm in, like how you should, like, why you shouldn't use the R word. I know it's so based, but my wife's a behavioral specialist, blah, 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 something that's very important to me, but most of it's not. Even when we engage in like the manosphere stuff, like, yeah, there is a very toxic online perspective and whatnot when it comes to like women in the manosphere, but is that really that important? Do people really take these people that seriously? I don't know. But I guess this can be a really distressing question that you might have.
And it's a healthy struggle, I hope, because it is something that informs me on both sides of my interests. On one hand, I recognize that I have to make money. On the other hand, I recognize that you are watching and you need something to benefit you. I know that you're working, right? You're offering value to me that I'm monetizing. And if you think I'm monetizing it, these guys over here on the YouTube app, they're doing that 12 times more and they're handing me a percentage of that. But you're not. You're not getting any of that.
Well, they're handing you about 50%. I think when it comes to shorts, we get 45%, and I think we might get 55% of YouTube ad revenue. I think that's pretty decent, to be honest with you. Oh, they're moving to another place. I think that's pretty decent. No? Maybe I'm wrong about that. But
you're not getting any of that percentage from that labor. Every person has to decide that balance for themselves. And this is kind of the decision that we're seeing ourselves making in every
Although
facet.
I will say that YouTube has implemented like a new thing where they've kind of streamlined your ability to advertise on the website through the creator program, whatever. You can now there's an option in there to promote your videos on other people's videos, of course. So it's going into an interesting direction. Where do you think this guy is?
Of life right now. Salis Bueno writes that the attention economy blurs the conceptual distinction between labor time and leisure time, and between productive and unproductive labor, and turns all human activity into a potential source of surplus value. So what do we do? This is the question that I get from commenters all the time, from my audience all the time. Because sometimes we talk about changing the world for the better on this channel. And then people are always left with questions, so asking for programs, asking for specific answers. And the specificity is something that makes it so that an answer cannot be given. You have to decide what your answer is in your specific world. And this is something that Salis Bueno deals with in the book as well, when he talks about how certain Marxist attempts at theorizing the attention economy have fallen back into that process of universalizing and trying to be pre or anti-historical almost, post-historical almost, which is something that we can't do. You decide what you do in your life. If you work in a gas station and you feel like you can unionize the laborers of the gas station, that's your choice. If you are 15 years old and you're in high school, then you can figure out what you want to do in high school to help the kids around you and figure out what job you want to do to help the world. You have to decide that in your own specific terms. And it's ironic because this specificity is also what makes the art we do worth it to me.
This is how I exercise my heart. Sorry, I know he's talking about like the... I'm so sorry. I know he's talking about like I think the value of, I get it. Hold on.
Rising the attention economy have fallen back into that process of universalizing and trying to be pre or anti-historical almost, post-historical almost, which is something that we can't do. You decide what you do in your life. If you work in a gas station and you feel like you can unionize the laborers of the gas station, that's your choice. If you are 15 years old and you're in high school, then you can figure out what you want to do in high school to help the kids around you and figure out what job you want to do to help the world. You have to decide that in your own specific terms. And it's ironic because this specificity is also what makes the art we do worth it to me. Have you noticed that the best video essays on this app are extremely specific? I talked about this with Colormind at one point. There's this kind of thing
I think that the best video essays on YouTube are video game related, right? Politics is cringe. Video games, though, I mean, would you call that a video essay? Like Josh Striface, he seems like a cool guy. He's all right. Kind of seems a little bit stuck up, but like not in a bad way. You know what I mean? Because we're all a little bit of assholes, but I like his content. He's pretty fun. It's pretty fun stuff. Okay.
where you see these videos pop up that get tons of views that are like these 45-minute, 50-minute exposés on a specific subject that you'd never even thought of before. One of the best videos that I'd ever seen on here was about Skrillex. It was about how dubstep had changed over the years from its sort of grassroots scene. And I had never cared about dubstep ever in my life, but this video was awesome. And this is the process I think a lot of you guys undergo as well, right? You log onto this app and you see these recommendations and sometimes something jumps out at you. It's like, I had no idea that I was going to be interested in watching a 1-hour video about Mike's Mike and his takes on a particular TV show or certain particular historical events. But you sit there and you do it, and the specificity is part of what makes it amazing. And through accuracy and through good historicization, we get these larger general points in a really natural and really insightful way. But the videos that tend to suck tend to be ones where you're left wondering, hey, can this person be more specific? Am I the only one who feels that way? Like, there's videos that I watch that are commentary videos that have also a lot of success. And it's not like I have an issue with the creators. I often find that they're very talented and smart and seem like cool people, but I feel something's missing because they're delving into a subject, but then they make certain points that are very general. And they kind of assume that you're just going to take those points at face value. Like, look, isn't this thing bad? This thing is bad, right? Bad thing. Okay, moving on. The sections where they're getting the details about something seem to be kind of rushed. They're almost like 5-10 minute sections of historicization of a subject where they're often taking stuff from like the first couple of Google searches. And look, I've been there, guilty as charged. But that also leaves a lot to be desired because you never really get an in-depth historical view at something. And not only that, but you also can be subject then to making a lot of assumptions that aren't true.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, that one could be, it could be one of two things, right? Sorry, a little amped up from that fight. One, it could be like really lazy research, I guess you could say, but it could also be because people are generally speaking to an audience, and sometimes it could be almost exhausting to qualify something over and over and over and over and over again. And I try to qualify it when we talk about like actual, like, you know, like, I guess social or political topics. I try to qualify my perspective on, like, you know, trans issues or whatever the fuck we're talking about when it comes to relevancy, but most people won't, because they just kind of assume like, hey, my audience is going to agree with me, or they understand specifically the perspective I'm coming from, especially if you look at somebody for a long period of time. But people tend to gravitate towards their own people. You know, if you're more, I guess you'd say, for lack of better terms, more conservative content creator, you don't have to be very explicit. People will just kind of pick up what you mean. Same thing for like a progressive content creator. So it's more, it might be more of that. It could be laziness. It could also just be, I guess, normal. Not necessarily even lazy, just kind of like par for the course a little bit. And you might actually start to understand that more as you watch more content from those individuals.
True. And so this ironically makes the bulk of the video, when people are trying to give their opinions on things, it makes those parts of the video flat, and it makes them feel less potent, because you're sitting there like, I'm glad that you have this take. It seems reasonable, but you haven't demonstrated to me that you have so much more knowledge about this than I do, so as to prove the validity of your take. But a lot of creators kind of make videos like this, and again, I don't want to sound super pretentious, because that's kind of
I think he's just building up to the point where he's going to talk about how Sunny V2 is like very lazy in his display of information, and he is, but it's kind of a tactic. It's very intentional. It's not like any type of laziness or anything like that. He's usually very intentionally vague, and when he wants to relay some kind of a social or political point, or really any point at all that he feels might be considered slightly unsafe, he'll say it through someone else. So he'll be like, this commenter here said, I hate all trans people. So you're supposed to expect that that person does, but when in reality it's like Sunny V2 actually does as well. He's just using another person's comment to, you know, regardless of how big the comment is, he's using it for a reason, right? And I think that this is all build up to that. I think I understand that. Yeah.
This video is, okay. Long story short, this is kind of meta, because this is one of my least planned videos ever. But there's a kind of epidemic. Not really. There's a kind of problem where so many of these creators in these video essay spaces will have a specific subject, and will have the thumbnail that catches your eye, and you'll view it and consume it as if it is this in-depth take and look into a subject matter. But if you take the time to listen actively to what they're saying, you realize this is a few Wikipedia articles and a hot take. It's generalities. It lacks the specificity. This is something that we see in popular art overall. Shows like The Wire and Severance, two of my favorite shows of all time, have in-depth, detailed looks at particular worlds. Great world building, great sort of analysis from a very kind of lefty perspective about how material situations evolve. But they're also really compelling because they have great storytelling. They give you characters that you empathize with and characters that you dislike. And sometimes, if they do it well, they can make you do both at the same time. That's actually the best shows to me, because that's life. They capture something specific about life. And they also do so while capturing very specific details of the world that they're talking about. And so when we make these videos, we kind of have to look at them as if we're making something to compete with The Wire, something to compete with the TV show, okay, which is crazy. But there's a reason why somebody like Defunct Land wants you to understand that he's a documentarian, because that is an established art form through which you can understand the nuances and the values and the efficiencies of what
I mean, I'm enjoying the video, but is it me, or this kind of feels almost like very roundabout? Like, I'm not entirely sure. I understand like what he's saying in this instance, where there are some content creators who aren't necessarily good at driving their points home, or they don't go into the more nuanced aspects of what they're saying, or they don't qualify everything that they're saying. But like, what's the point of him saying it? I'm not trying to be a dickhead or anything. Obviously, this guy's more talented than me. But, like, what's the point, right? Like, I understand, like, hey, here's some factual information. So what do we do with it? What's the point of that information that you proposed, right? That's more where I'm at a little bit. Because it feels like we've had about 20 minutes of build-up and a 25-minute video to, I don't know,
he's doing. And you can understand that there are choices that he makes in order to tell stories, as well as in order to give good factual investigation and reporting and theorizing about a subject matter. And so this is oftentimes what we're left to do. And I think this also separates the video essay from the commentary video, because the commentary video is more so a take. It's more so focused on the person's opinion. The essay is more so, even if it is opinionated or based in opinion, does a lot more work to reveal details, does a lot more work to do scholarship. And both can have their place as long as a specificity is there. A specificity and a humility. We have to also remain humble when we do this work. We cannot think of ourselves as revolutionaries. And unless we're doing the kind of work that somebody like Dan Olson or Defunct Land are doing, we can't think of ourselves as documentarians either. We have to understand that if we're doing 20-minute videos every week of hot takes about pop culture subjects, as I did for many weeks on this channel, then that means there's limitations there. There's only so much you can say and only so much you can do. And you cannot possibly come away from that video as a creator thinking, nailed it, that's the take, that's all we got on that subject. Moving on, my goal with those videos was to think of them somewhat like a John Oliver thing, where I investigate a subject a little bit, I do some research about it, try to get as in-depth with the research as I can in a short span of time, but understand that there's a lot of things that I'm not going to talk about. When I talked about plurality, for instance, in my video about dissociation, I had to talk about that from a very distant basics standpoint. I wasn't trying to act like I had a great take about plurality. I left any opinion or deeper thought on that alone because I wasn't qualified to give it. And this is the big thing. We have to recognize that we're running up against walls, and that that's a good thing for creativity. There's nothing wrong with doing this. But if we are constantly chasing a type of perfection with it, or something that is outside of commodified realms, then this is not the thing to do. As an audience member, remember that you have to have a level of discretion. There's a lot of people who watch videos like these, probably most people, with them on in the background as a kind of fun little background
like
noise.
a little, mostly like a distraction while you're doing homework or something. For me, well, usually when I'm playing this game, well, I guess I'm streaming and doing that too, but that's mostly what I do with it.
While I knit, or while I cook, or while I exercise, I'll have this on in the background. I like to do 90% of my content consumption that way. It helps me catch up to all the things that I want to catch up on, and it also is fun. But there's a degree to which you lose the ability to actively listen.
You know what's interesting? Well, I'm about to say, I wonder if that's like has a bit of an impact on some of these videos, right? Like, I think I do usually a pretty decent job of playing a game, unless I'm in a PvP fight, and responding to videos. But when I'm not actively listening to the video through here, like if I watch it offline, sometimes I don't really engage with the video as much as like I would here, especially. And so I wonder if one of the reasons why, I'm just thinking here, Sunny V2 can make fucking, sometimes just make absolute dog shit, is because people aren't really listening. They're kind of half tuned into what's happening. It's more of just like background noise. It's some kind of familiarity. It's having somebody to be there to talk to you, because, I don't know, being alone with your thoughts, I don't even know if it's with your thoughts, is like an issue. Like when I'm watching stuff, I don't even know why I do it. I guess it's to stimulate myself in some capacity, but not too much. And even my wife, like when she watches TV, she does like the same thing. People just aren't really listening anymore. And I wonder if that's why TV seems to be getting a little more shitty every day and very simple, because people are responding to it just fine because they're not really watching it. Like back in the day, you didn't have you didn't have a fucking cell phone to go on to, because that's what people do now. You go on your fucking cell phone. You got like iPad kids on your cell phone while you're supposed to be watching TV or a movie. That's how my wife engages with stuff, and I think a lot of people do. And so I wonder, like, if that has like anything to do with the drop in quality. Then again, maybe my thought that things are dropping quality just comes from the fact that I'm older now and I'm looking through things like with a rose-colored lens or something. Okay. I don't know if that's the point he was trying to make.
Because you're multitasking. And this is because you're possibly trying to have your attention remain yours while still producing it for somebody else. And it's no wonder that our existences are so stressful, right? I mean, we're trying so hard to have the attention for ourselves that we've been producing for other people while still producing them for other people because we like how it feels.
I think one of the reasons people get more stressed nowadays is because I think people are smarter overall nowadays. Better access to education, more critical thinking. I think that people who are reasonably intelligent, like there are people, and I've worked with them before, and God bless them, they're not bad people, can just go through life without a fucking thought. They could just sit there and stare into the sun for hours, and time just passes. You know, I was just at a graduation the other day, and I'm like, how did people do this with a phone? I'm just constantly like, and part of it has to probably do with the fact that I can't be alone. Like I need to be stimulated, which you could probably argue some kind of an addiction or something. I don't really know. But I mean, back in the day, there are people who could just they could just sit there. They're just kind of chilling. How do you do that? And I think that has to do with like a little bit of intelligence. I think people who are a little more intelligent, which I think is happening more and more, it's becoming more and more common. I don't know. Maybe they just need different. They're just always thinking. It's like, what a stressful world. Whereas there's people who just fucking stare. They're just there. They're just present, but they're not really. It's almost like their body is like a fucking time machine. They could just turn their brains off and wake up in the future 3 hours later without having to actually engage with what's happening. So
we give capitalists money. And that's the daunting thing of it all, right? We want to have this attention. We feel this complete strain on our attention from the attention economy. But we also like how it feels to watch YouTube videos and to watch TV shows and to listen to podcasts. We like how it feels when we produce attention and give it to somebody else for them to profit off of. And that's inevitable at this rate. The first step then to trying to figure out a way through that is to understand that that's happening and then to figure out how it's applying to your situation. Get as specific as possible with your own life, just as we have to get as specific as possible with these videos. Remember that capitalism can turn anything, and has turned basically everything, into some realm for producing surplus value. And that's why it's important to have things in our lives that are not for anybody else's extraction. Things that are just for us. Things that are just for me, that are just for the people around me. Conversations that nobody else can listen to, and nobody else will have record of. Face-to-face conversations at that. Things like touching grass can be made fun of oftentimes, but you don't have to sell labor to anybody to touch grass. You just have to go find it and touch it. Sometimes I feel like my life gets drained way too much because I am producing way too much for other people. And rather than recognize that I'm doing that, I sit and I wait for other people to reward me for the value that I'm giving to them. And under capitalism, that is essentially impossible because you are either the exploiter or the exploited. And this has a toll on everything, including our relationships. So instead of constantly trying to win and constantly trying to succeed in situations, we have to reject the concept of success in certain realms at all. This realm, this video, is a realm that I would like success in. I'm producing a lot, but after this is done, I'm going to go lay on my couch and do some completely unproductive stuff. Because if the exploitation and oppression of me, my mind and body, as well as everyone else's around me, are dictated by productivity, then we cannot combat that or deal with that without beginning to be unproductive. As long as we're trying to be productive, we're always going to start playing that spectrum game. We are always, as creators, running
outside of a capitalist society, you need to be productive. But okay.
A race between Sunny V2 and FD Signifier, caught somewhere in the middle. And that's life. That's life under capitalism. But it's not all of what life has to be. One day, I want to retire from YouTube. And when I do so, I want to still upload videos because I don't want my retirement to be dictated by me no longer posting, but in fact, for me to no longer care about being productive with what I do on YouTube. One day I'm going to be able to just upload what I want to upload, monetize.
Yeah. But then, I don't know, wouldn't you be the exploiter? Because as you get more successful on YouTube, you have to do less and less work for a payout. I don't know, whatever.
Maybe to some degree, but not really care about it from a career perspective at all. Until I get to that point, have a little bit of a grain of salt with my videos because I view them with a grain of salt. I love them, but they're not true natural extensions of me. This is work, and I'm glad to do it, but I know what it is. That's the end of the video. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.
Okay. So I'm gonna be real. Nice guy. definitely a harder worker than me, more potential than someone like me. But I didn't really understand the point of that video. I'm not trying to be like rude or anything. The title was the problem with YouTube commentary videos, and all I kind of got out of there was like, hey, Sunny V2 and Illuminati are bad. Why? There's a brief stint about how they dog whistle, and sometimes they don't really flesh out their ideas very well, and they're lazy. And then we kind of went on this. Again, to me, you could correct me if I'm wrong with it in the chat or whatever. And then we kind of went on a rant about, well, really not even a rant. It was like a shower thought, like probably a really interesting thought that he was exploring with us, which is kind of cool, I suppose. But I didn't really understand. I don't really know what to take away from that video, other than FD Signifier is a better video essayist than Sunny V2, which is probably true. I'm just a little confused. But here's what I will say. Let me leave you with a little bit of this. Last time I was banned off of YouTube, or really any time that I am, even the ones that get overturned. You guys owe me 5 days. I don't engage with the content that I make anymore. And I do enjoy giving my perspective on it, but a lot of it is, centralizes around some kind of a social or political issue, or the manosphere, ooh, spooky, or something like that. And I will say that when you stop making content, well, when I did, I wouldn't really engage with this stuff anymore. And I was happier. And while I think it's really good to be politically and socially informed, there are some times where it might not be a bad idea to take a break. Now that I'm back to work, when I'm driving around, I'm thinking, I think he referenced something like this in the beginning, sorry. Having conversations with yourself is something that I do a lot. I wasn't doing that when I wasn't making content. And it was very peaceful, excuse me. And it was a very peaceful experience. So there's really no point to what I'm saying other than that's a nice feeling. So yeah.